So we need to picture ourselves in one of the most common scenarios, which is Friday, 5 p.m. One of your IT teams, say, for example, finds a backdoor account or a backdoor on one of your systems. And basically, panic stations are up at that point, right? Everyone starts freaking out. Everyone's very concerned, and basically, sort of the emotions don't stop after that point. So usually what happens is they go to their incident response plan, and quite quickly, after about 5 minutes, they realize that it's actually not going to help them because it was a template tick the box incident response plan and not actually well thought out, and with a lot of the preparation steps filled in, which is what a lot of organizations miss, that actually feed into a lot of the decisions and the really detailed steps that you need to be able to follow. So, you've gone through, everyone's panicking, and then you reach out to your incident response partner, let's say it's us, to be able to help you, navigate this breach and also navigate some of those legal, landmines that you can come up against. So one of the first things that you come up against is the chain of custody, right? So quite often, or really with every breach, when this happens, there's been a backdoor found or something along those lines, or one of the accounts has been breached. And there are infinite number of questions that don't have answers at the moment. And some of those questions that don't have answers actually guide some of the legal decisions that you're making at this very point when you've just determined if a breach has occurred, right? And so that can be things like, is it an internal or an external threat actor who's breached the organization? Right? Is it a major breach or is it a minor breach? It could be that you've found a backdoor on one system, but actually there are 100 backdoors throughout your whole environment, right? So you may make an assumption that, it's a minor breach, and that may change later on. And one of the more important questions really fundamentally is, will legal action be taken by you against someone else? Or will legal action be taken against you, by potentially, customers or employees or whoever it is. So you need to, at this stage, make some initial assumptions based on what the type of the breach is. So if it's an internal threat actor, so an internal threat, so one of your employees, for example, has gone a bit rogue, or a contractor's had their contract cancelled, and they didn't like that, then there is a much higher likelihood that you're going to want to take legal action against them, off the back of the incident. And therefore, you need to follow a proper chain of custody to be able to back up your legal case against, say, the rogue employee. Also, if it's a major security breach, if it looks like, all right, hey, we've got a domain admin account in our Active Directory that wasn't there before, that's an indication that this is not a minor breach. This is a major breach, and we're likely to find a lot more sort of backdoors and backdoor accounts and systems being accessed and potentially data being stolen. And therefore, there's a much higher likelihood that we're going to suffer or legal action against us because it's a major breach, right? So with that in mind, if it's an internal insider threat or it's a major security breach, then you really want to get your legal team involved right at the get-go. And so we'll touch on the reasons for that later on. But from a evidence collection perspective, it makes a difference for the incident response investigators to know whether you're going to be taking legal action or it's going to go to court, whether it's for you or against you. Because follow a proper chain of custody, it takes more time. It's more thorough. In terms of the processes that are followed. And obviously that means that it costs more because there's more time being taken on some of these processes. So as an example, for things like evidence collection, if it's a physical device, you have to be taking, before you even touch it, you have to be taking photos of it, any USB keys that are connected, those sort of things. You have to be using evidence collection bags to be able to put them in so that, you can, as you pass them around to different people, you're signing off who gave it to them and who received it and when. And also when you're collecting digital forensic evidence, you have to, when you collect the evidence, rather than, the IR team asking the client, hey, can you just give me these logs? That opens up those logs to being tampered with. And so the IR team actually has to go and collect the logs themselves, or, whatever evidence it is, disk images and things like that. They then all need to be hashed so that there's, you can have reproducible hashes from the evidence to prove who is the original evidence who was collected, as well as being timestamped so that every piece of evidence that's collected is timestamped, and so that you know exactly when it was actually retrieved. So that's sort of the chain of custody side of things. The problem, one of the landmines that comes up from a legal perspective is if you think it's an external threat actor or you assume it's a minor breach, and then during the investigation we find that, actually this looks like it was your employee who did this, and suddenly you want to be able to take legal action, but the evidence being collected hasn't followed a chain of custody to be able to confidently take that to court. So it's not the end of the world if that happens. It's just about being able to justify that the evidence that was collected wasn't tampered with and it was done in a forensically sound way, to be able to take that to court. It's just that it's not an ideal situation. We had a real world situation where we had a client who had a contractor, long-term contractor, had their contract cancelled. They then left. They didn't terminate their access. This guy came in, and it was an IT person, came in and deleted their entire Azure and Office 365 tenancy, which then obviously put them in a very difficult situation. So they had to then work with Microsoft, because all of their backups were in the cloud as well. Actually had to try and work with Microsoft to undelete the entire environment, which they were luckily able to do. So they originally assumed that was an external threat actor who did that. Turned out during the investigation it was an internal threat actor for the evidence, so that because they wanted to just recover quicker, they didn't want us to collect the evidence following a proper chain of custody. They just wanted to get up and running again.